In January of the year 1996, a family consisting of a husband and wife lived in Germany, and their daughter, who lived alone in London to study for several years. The couple was suffering from financial hardship after the husband was recently fired from his job, and they could not find a loaf of bread to protect them from hunger. The wife asked her husband to travel to sell the house she inherited from her father 10 years ago, to improve their financial situation, which had been delayed because it was located in a village far from the city. The husband hesitated because the house was in a deserted area thousands of miles from the city center. And after the wife's insistence, the husband agreed and decided to travel despite his anxiety. The husband took a vehicle from the city center to take him to the nearest point to this village. And after several hours of driving, the owner of the vehicle stopped and ordered him to get off. "Are we there yet?" The driver told him. "No, you still have an hour to go." The husband wondered, "Then why are you telling me to get off if we haven't arrived yet?" The driver was confused and said, "Because I can't continue on this road leading to the village any further." The husband was surprised and asked, "Why?" The driver got confused again, then yelled at him and said, "Come on, get out of the vehicle and let me go back to the city center, man." The husband agreed and got out of the vehicle after the driver's insistence and remained surprised at his behavior. He began to think about how he would reach the village, and when he looked in front of him and it was dark, he found nothing but trees in the middle of a rough road, and no sounds except the sounds of wolves and dogs. The husband was very afraid, and began to turn around to see if he could find a vehicle to take him to the village. But he could not find one, so he had no choice but to pray that he would find the road and arrive safely. And he continued walking, and more than an hour had passed, and he had not arrived yet. He saw a woodcutter lying in the forest. The husband was delighted and ran to him and told him what had happened to him. The woodcutter paused and said, "The people of this village don't like strangers." The husband looked at him strangely and said, "They don't like strangers." "Why?" The woodcutter laughed and said, "There are evil spirits in this village, so the villagers are afraid of any stranger." The husband was surprised and said, "But I have to go in." The woodcutter said, "Well, go in, and if anyone asks you, say that you are looking for work." The husband agreed and entered the village in fear, looking for his wife's house, and continued searching until he found it. He entered the house with great caution, and darkness surrounding him from all sides due to the failure of the house lamps. Then he started screaming until the villagers gathered around him, only to be surprised to find a body that had been decomposing for years. When the husband approached the skeleton, he found a chain on her neck, and after scrutinizing it, he discovered that it was his daughter's chain that he had gifted with his wife as a child. The husband was very sad and buried the remains of his daughter's body. And he began to think, what brought her from London to this place, and how was she killed? The man slept that night with difficulty while thinking about his daughter. And the next day when he woke up and looked in the mirror, he found a spot of blood on his face, and after thinking, he thought that he had been wounded last night while burying his daughter, and he did not care much. The husband was forced to stay in the terrifying village for several months, until the murderer of his daughter was revealed, under the pretext of looking for a buyer for the house in front of his wife. And every night, he hears terrifying voices that do not enable him to sleep all night. Voices that say, "Are you my father? Mom here?" When he despaired of finding his daughter's killer, with the help of the police, and after his impatience and terror of those voices, he heard every night, he decided to return to his home in the city. And after hours, he arrived home, hesitating how he would tell his wife about their daughter, who she had not seen for years for her studies abroad. And when he arrived home, he knocked on the door, trembling with tension, to surprise their neighbor coming towards him, telling him, "Your wife received a telegram from you a month ago, telling her to follow you, and that you need her urgently." The husband was surprised and said, "Me? I didn't send any telegram." The neighbor was surprised and suggested that he follow her, which he did immediately. The husband took a vehicle to take him to that terrifying village again, and as soon as he arrived, he searched for her around the village and in her father's house, but he did not find her. The husband was surprised and returned to the city center to inform the police station. So the police searched for the wife for days and days, but did not find any trace of her. The husband believed that his wife left him and used the excuse of selling the village house to send him away. So he gave up and lived alone and sorrowful. And after several years, there was a knock on the door of the house, an anonymous telegram that said, "Don't wait for my mother. She will not return and is now somewhere else. Don't wait for my mother. She won't come back. She is in another place." The husband wondered what was in this telegram and continued reading it while shivering, and a note at the end of the letter said, "I learned that I was adopted and that I am not your daughter when I left for London years ago. You will be number 2. Get ready."